But let's talk first of all about the revelation of the succession plan. Do you also buy Apple's argument, as a majority of shareholders did, that keeping this succession plan private is in the best interest of the company?
Well, I think it's totally in the best interest of the company. I mean, you know, for one thing, it doesn't fix a succession plan. I mean, Apple has a succession plan, but to reveal it, I mean, you can think of any number of negatives that would occur. I mean, somebody else may try and hire the person that they've tapped to be the successor of the company. Someone may, if it's not someone who's currently working for Apple, they may find out what that person is thinking in terms of the computer market. It makes absolutely no sense to reveal the succession plan. And yes, I know Steve Jobs' health is a major concern, but, you know, look at Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, Warren Buffett is 80 years old. He eats hamburgers, steak, and all these other things which are not particularly good for you. He says he has a succession plan, but obviously it's a plan that sticks today, but, you know, from what we've seen, is probably changing over time. I mean, you want to give Apple the same kind of flexibility. It's not an easy thing to succeed Steve Jobs. I mean, Tim Cook's a wonderful operator, but he may decide to go with someone, you know, from the creative side, from the design side. I think it makes so much sense to not make this company reveal their succession plan. They'd have to reveal every day what we've decided to change.
Well, and Scott, it seems as though this also reveals a lot of trust that shareholders have put in the Apple management to handle this presumed eventual succession successfully.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you have a management team that's been in place for over 10 years together here. You know, revealing any sort of plan and, you know, directing names. And having every company do this across Wall Street would create a paranoia among companies, among who's the next executive to go. So I completely agree that just knowing that there's a plan in place, that the company reviews that plan, is more than enough than revealing the details of that plan.
And Scott, also, when you think about the company and its future, potentially without Steve, how far out do you think things are planned now? How far out, you know, has Steve planned for the company?
Yeah, I think when you look from the creative side, you have product design cycles within Apple that can run 3 years, talking to some people I know at the company there. And that clearly can mean they have a fourth and fifth act after the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. From an operational standpoint, I think Tim Cook is clearly a great operator there. I think the operations and the other management team members have been very involved there, where Steve has been very involved on the creative side and has done a wonderful job there over the last 14 years.
Steve, what about you? I mean, are there other products there in the pipeline there at Apple that we just have no idea about? The next iPad that's going to be coming down the pipe, either with Steve Jobs or without him?
Well, I think the next iPad is more or less fixed in stone, and probably the next couple of generations of the MacBook and Mac Air are probably fixed in stone. But
well, I mean not the iPad per se, but the next product, the next magical product that Apple's going to come out with.
The next magical product probably includes the Apple Television, the living room. And I really think that's going to take a tremendous amount of creativity and a tremendous amount of negotiating skills to make the Apple Television a really viable product. And I think the upside there is just enormous, obviously enormous. And Steve Jobs, by virtue of his connections at Disney, I think he's the largest single shareholder, obviously has a lot of personal leverage in that particular area, not only in terms of design, but also in terms of the kind of content they'll have access to. So I think he's very, very vital to that. And I think the person that succeeds him is going to have a resume that, you know, includes some sort of leverage in terms in the content area and also some knowledge of design. It's not an easy thing to. In fact, it's impossible to fill Steve Jobs' shoes. The question is, can we find someone that can nearly do it? But Apple TV, I think, is an absolutely critical product for the company over the next 5 to 10 years, not necessarily over the next 3.
And as we think about kind of, you know, not necessarily the next products, but the products that they already have, and we think about the iPhone and the iPad, Scott, what do you think about the competition that's coming from Google? Obviously, Android is already selling significantly more phones. The Zoom, Motorola's competitor to the iPad, is coming out running on the Android platform. How do you think Apple's going to compete against that?
Right. Well, at CES, there was over 80 tablets announced at that show, so not all these tablets are going to be successful. I did play the Zoom, but clearly that wasn't on the Android Honeycomb. That wasn't ready, so they had video demos there. I think what Apple is doing is very smart. There's a March 2nd conference, they're holding a press event. And that's why they expected they're going to announce the iPad 2, which would be the annual cycle of an early April launch for that product. So they're going to slam the iPad 2 down on the first generation products of everyone else except for the Galaxy Tab.